Welcome to Between Two Clinicians, the podcast that gives you a backstage pass into the mind of two therapists. I'm Talia.
I'm Adam Luke. We've spent years helping others navigate the complexities of their minds and relationships.
In this podcast, we're flipping the script, and we're sharing our own unfiltered insights. No topic is off limits, and no issue too taboo. We're ready to tackle the tough stuff with honesty and empathy. Let's dive in. Today's episode, I'll do the intro. I feel confident enough to stay focused. It's an adaptation from a DM you got from one of our listeners.
Yeah.
Filtering the topic that we've talked about before from psychoanalytic theory, good and bad object, how the person was writing in, creative use of the words, and deeper down what the person was describing when we asked for more was actually emotional immaturity and inherited emotional immaturity from their partner's parent. So today's episode will be on emotional immaturity, including emotionally immature parents, how it's taught, how it's modeled, and how it can be passed into your in-law and family dynamics, which we've talked about in-law dynamics in a lot of previous episodes. And I think emotional immaturity specifically, if you grew up in the opposite, if you grew up in an emotionally mature household, we feel spoiled sometimes. And then when we see emotional immaturity, it's like, wait, what? Caveat, we will get to this at the end as well. Just because you grew up in that doesn't mean you're doomed to be or stay emotionally immature forever. So there's something to be said there. Even if you're noticing some of the things we talk about in the beginning, like, oh my gosh, I was raised in that, it doesn't mean you'll stay like that.
Yeah, you're not fatalized to sort of repeat it. But that is where you're going to have to differentiate.
Yes, and differentiation and individuation are other concepts you and I have covered before that can't hurt. They can only benefit, especially when it comes to emotional immaturity and having been raised by emotionally immature parents. It may be tougher for you to do those rites of passage, but they're just probably more necessary if you grew up with emotionally immature parents to make sure you differentiate and you individuate. So why don't you get us started with what emotional immaturity looks like in families or in a person?
Absolutely. Something that we talked about before we hopped on here was like this idea of you don't just wake up with emotional immaturity. Like this is very much the way that I think of it is when I'm sitting down with clients and we're first building that like emotional awareness, a lot of them will have that aha moment of like, wait a second, like what have I been living in? Because emotional immaturity, when it's generationally passed down, is a lot like the Truman Show. If you've ever seen the movie The Truman Show, there's literally a character who he thinks everything is real, but he's actually a part of a show, right? Everything's scripted around him, but he thinks he has like free will and free choice, but it's actually a facade. The same thing happens in emotional maturity because as we grow up with it, we don't ever actually recognize that there's any differentiating boundaries. Like when does this stop? Normally it's when you actually reach out to a romantic partner, you start developing a relationship, you get married, and then all of a sudden you have a partner that just feels like, oh my God, they're just so difficult. Why do you make this so hard on me? Like, can't you just be normal and let me get through Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever it is? And really what you're doing is you're asking that objective observer, hey, join me in the misery. Like, or it's interesting how when this objective observer comes into the relationship, that all of a sudden the whole system becomes hostile to them. And that's starting to feel like common themes that we've already walked down in certain episodes. But emotional immaturity is really manifested if we were to look at like the parental relationship, where people might connect with this is there may have been a period of time where you were actually parentified as a child. Now, just recently, I had a client say, what the hell is that? Parentified? Well, see, this is when you were actually asked as a child to become a colleague or parent your parent.
Yes.
The other way that I see it the most easily outlined is, do you feel like there's ever been a period in time where you've been your parent's therapist? Right?
Yes.
Like, a lot of children who have navigated broken homes
Yep.
have been that, right? You sit with mom, mom complains about dad. You sit with dad, dad complains about mom.
Yeah.
And in this existential crisis, you have this child who's literally hearing one way or another 50% of me is bad, right?
Yes, especially when it's a co-parenting dynamic. There's no knowledge or there's lack of insight as to how to, in an age appropriate way, regulate their own
Mm,
emotions and regulate the emotions of others. That includes like empathy, impulse control, and other healthy relationship
mhm,
dynamics that stem from it. If you are emotionally mature and you were allowed all of your emotions growing up, you weren't shamed, you weren't sent away when you had big feelings, there was
mhm,
conflict and repair modeled, there were healthy boundaries modeled and reinforced. Those are all what I just listed indicators of emotional maturity. But most of
mhm,
us, millennials especially, parents didn't fight in front of you at all, or they fought a ton and they never repaired or apologized, so you don't know
mhm,
how to do it. Caregivers were overly accommodating, so they never let you have your own feelings, or they constantly filled, oh well, you're feeling this, or it's like almost gaslighting. You're like, I wasn't,
mm,
now I am. Same thing, I saw it at the beach the other day. This son was crying. He's like 16 months because he didn't want to go in the water. It was very warm, by the way, unseasonably warm. And my daughter is very brave with the water. I go in with her because I'm more of like a granola mom in that sense. I'm like, I'll just change my clothes, we can always vacuum the car, I don't care, I'll get
yeah,
dirty. And the dad was like, I don't want to get my shoes wet. And I'm like, kick your shoes off and get in the fucking ocean. With the kid's crying, and he goes, you're fine, you're okay, in a sing-songy tone, better than some parents. And that is emotional immaturity, maybe not
mm,
intentional. If my kid is crying affectively, they are not okay. So me going in and saying you're fine is actually invalidating and dismissing their emotions. And
how
that's,
confusing, right? I
yes,
feel dysregulated, but I'm being told
but by my trusted caregiver who I look for to learn how to feel or what to feel or process, I'm not fine. And so that's where you get in
mm,
adulthood, a lot of people apologize when they're crying or taking up space or they have bad feelings or negative emotions, right? There's no such thing. If you look at a feelings chart, they're just all emotions, and how we tolerate or don't tolerate them, that can feel icky.
mm,
But big feelings, or some for families with emotional immaturity, or kind of a lack of, I would say, what would be the right word? There's not a full scale. It's a very limited breadth and depth, and there's only certain
mm,
feelings that are allowed. Like if you were to look at the color wheel or the color spectrum, there's only like, you're only allowed red. You're not allowed all of the other ones or the in between colors. So it's not as much of a range as other families where emotional maturity is there. What do you feel? How do you feel it? Where do you feel it in your body? What's the intensity? What happened to have you feel that way? What do you need or want in this
mhm,
moment to bring it down if it's too intense, right? This is DBT 101. It could be the right feeling and fit the facts of the situation that caused it, but acting on it might not be the most effective. So we need to rein that in.
mm,
That's emotional regulation and emotional maturity in action. Parents don't have
absolutely.
to do that if they didn't learn how to do it. So maybe only happiness was allowed in your family, or only anger, but in this way, and no sadness. You can't be vulnerable. You can't
Mhm,
be weak, right? Crying makes you weak. Crying is actually one of the primal instincts for mammals. Every mammal is born with knowing their survival instinct. That's why other animals are born knowing how to walk. We are born knowing how to cry. It's literally what kept us alive, and it's our parents' job to decipher what cry means, which need needs to be met. This starts in infancy. If that didn't happen and your parents aren't emotionally attuned to themselves, or they can't be to you, they're not going to have emotional maturity to be able to help you with your big feelings. They're going to say, you're fine, or send you to your room, or calm down.
yeah, and
Yeah.
to the point, because I think that we're outlining it real well, I just want
Mm-hmm.
the listeners to hear as well. Whenever you're saying you're fine, are you actually comforting that person, or are you trying to assign a role?
You're trying to comfort
Because,
yourself.
like,
Please be good. Please
exactly.
go back to being fine so I don't have to get in touch with the feelings. That feeling in you
I
is
don't have to sit with the discomfort you're raising up here, right? Like the
yes,
vulnerability that you're bringing into this
yes,
moment, I'm having to deal with. It's like
yeah,
the meme where the guy's got the arrow in the eye and it's like don't tell mom, right? It's not because you're trying to protect your sibling.
yep,
It's
yep.
because I don't want to get my ass beat. Well, the
Hmm.
same thing when it comes to you're fine. And it's
Yes.
actually something that, like, I think that for me as a therapist, I started to recognize that because I have a 2-year-old now. Like how
Mm-hmm.
easy it is to say those phrases, and not realize like, oh, wait a second, that's actually an abuse of power.
Even just
Like,
saying you'll be okay versus
mm-hmm,
you're okay, even just that small linguistic shift validates what they're going through, affirms for the
mm-hmm.
future. It's not perfect. By mind you,
No,
there's way
not at
better
all.
phrases, but if that's all you take away from this episode and you're a parent or you're reparenting yourself,
Mm,
just that simple shift can prevent a lot of damage from happening because you're able to accurately, like,
yep.
it is most often than not, more often than not true, they
Mm,
will end up okay. That's the
yeah,
key differentiator. So even just
but you're
those small,
actually letting them know that they will get there, right? Instead
yeah,
of it
and
being something that's
narrate
brought to them.
what you see. That's what I do, and I've been complimented by
Mm,
professionals. Wow, she is so securely attached and attuned. She's so loquacious. She's so verbose. She knows all the. She points to the feelings chart. I'm mad because of this. He's sad because of. It should be studied, to be honest. Like, I'm so proud of all the work that I've put in with her for that, and I'm so grateful for herself. Like, I
mhm,
have admiration for her that she won't grow up in the same confusion. Ideally, yes, she's two, so there's the
mm,
neuron stuff of like, you're crying because you can't put your head in the oven. That is sad. It's frustrating. It's confusing because I'm saying no and you want me to say yeah, right? Like, but there's no
yeah.
shortage of explaining for her, you're sad because of this. And we read this little book called
Mm,
Dinosaur's Divorce, and I read it to her since she was 7 months old. So it's in your subconscious. And there's a page that she loves, and she goes, "He's sad." And I'm like, "Yes. Do you ever feel sad sometimes?" She's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "So does mommy. It's a very normal emotion. It actually feels really good to cry. It's always a good idea to let it out however it feels." So we talk about it, but every night when we read our books, I read her like 20 books a night. She goes, "Sad." And I'm like, "Would you like the sad dinosaur to watch over us?" She's like, "Yes." So we leave it on that page, and it's like what she has on her chest while she falls asleep. And I've worked with her long enough that it's not all the time that she's trying to tell me that's how she feels, but she's so
mm,
empathetic when other kids have feelings
oh
that she'll
yeah.
be like, why are they crying? Why is this? And I don't know, maybe they got hurt or they didn't
Mhm,
want to share a toy. I give other examples, or they're frustrated. I love feelings books though for kids. So you can start this for
yeah.
yourself. Go read to your inner child. You don't have to stay emotionally immature forever, but this whole list is where it comes from, that your parents didn't accurately name for you and help you to tolerate the emotions you felt when you were young. So now you are chronically feeling this in adulthood like you're a kid.
Mm,
You're chronologically an adult, but you're chronically feeling like a 5, 6, or 7 year old, and you can't regulate your emotions or you can't
correct.
feel them because who you looked to in your childhood to do that couldn't even do it for themselves. And then that becomes your template for that's how adults are. So you can't handle when other people set
Mhm,
limits or can't tolerate your feelings because you also can't tolerate. And this is where we get parents who storm off at the end of an argument. They freak out, they yell, they get defensive, they
mm,
shift the blame, they guilt trip. That's the bad object piece. The listener, like, oh, I guess I failed as a parent. They can't tolerate being called out for, yeah, maybe I actually did mess up. You know what? You're right. How hard is that for some people to say? You're right. That's correct. I'm sorry. I did not mean that. Not that intention in that sense matters, but that's messed up. And I'm really sorry that that had that impact on you. What can I do to make it right?
yeah.
Putting pride aside is a huge indicator of emotional maturity.
Mm,
And like, to your point, if you have that in a family, you're the person who has it, and the family you're trying to join doesn't, or your family doesn't, you're going to be the black sheep of the family. And it's awkward when you're the more emotionally mature one, even though chronologically you might be the younger one. I want to leave listeners with that for sure. Hey there, listeners. Are you tired of settling for less than you deserve in your relationships? Do you ever feel like you're not being seen, heard, or valued the way that you want? Or maybe you've been wondering why you keep attracting the same kinds of people into your life, or why certain patterns seem to repeat themselves in your relationships. The answer might be deeper than you think, and you can find it in my new course. Rewire Your Relationships is a transformative course designed to help you stop settling for less than you deserve and start embodying your most confident, assertive, and authentic self in your relationships. You'll explore how your early experiences and parental influences have shaped your views on love, dating, and self-worth. This isn't just about tips and tricks for dating. It's about understanding the core beliefs that drive relationships that you attract. You'll learn how to break free from those old patterns and start creating the kind of connections that truly reflect who you are. Imagine stepping into a relationship with clarity and confidence, knowing you're attracting people who value and respect you for who you really are, your deeply authentic self.
The Rewire Your Relationship course gives you the tools to rewrite your relationship story, one where you're no longer settling, but thriving. Visit taliabombola.com/rewire your relationships or check the link in the show notes for more.
Absolutely. And my other thing is, as long as you can stay consistent in your conviction, it's amazing how fast the system does change,
Mhm, mhm.
because you will start recruiting people. And when I say that, people are like, well, recruiting. I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
I don't want you being out there like evangelizing,
No,
trying to
no,
get
no, but
people
your
to your
motto was
position.
people are like,
But
"I
the
want
more
this."
that you have boundaries, the more that you stay in your lane. When
Yep,
people are like, oh, where's so and so? And it's like, well, so and so didn't want to be here, so and so didn't come. Then all of a sudden there's this invitation
yeah,
in the family system of like,
that's an
wait a
option.
second, let's actually show up when we want to
Yeah,
show up and
yeah.
how we want to do it. You know, I think that to like again trying to weave that good object bad object in here. When you look at it from like the psychoanalytic way of describing the good object, it's this idea that the good object is this nurturing, caring, supportive, loving, affirming uh, position in a person's life. The bad object is immediately, this person is my enemy, right? What's interesting is when we then apply it in this case, what this listener brought to us, it actually feels more like imago therapy in the toxic forms of
Mhm,
basically this listener was able to say, hey, I'm navigating this dynamic with my mother-in-law, or my mother-in-law and my husband then start to get bristly with me. And why is it, right? Now, and many times I'm wondering, how many times do you interact with your husband where your husband isn't actually interacting with his wife? Your husband has regressed in
mhm,
age and
mhm,
in person, and
mhm,
just because you asked a clarifying question, he immediately went to its criticism. It's a personal attack of my character.
mhm.
I'm failing to meet her needs. Rejection is happening, and before you know it, he's having a fight with his mom, and you're trying to reach your husband.
Yeah, but he's feeling like, "Oh, no, I disappointed mommy. I'm not her special little boy anymore. I want back in her good graces," mixed with, and this can go daughter, father-in-law, like,
Oh
that's
yeah.
usually not as common, to be honest. I'm sure I haven't seen that side of TikTok or Instagram, thank God. I don't have the stomach at this point in the year, like, I just let me get through the next 20 days alone, please. I don't maybe next year's episodes, but I guess this will come out in the new year, but it is typically the mother or son mother-in-law dynamic. And Dr. Tracy Daglish, I think is her name. Sorry if I mispronounced that. She has a book. I think it's like You, Me, and Your Mom, and it's about mother-in-law and son husband dynamic. It's she has like changed her whole account to it. She's an expert. Like it's so helpful for it, and it also helps a lot of people realize like, yeah, I don't want to deal with this. Like, could I? Maybe, but I've counseled and coached so many women in the last 2 years, especially because we're on that uprising, that they're like, I don't want to deal with that immaturity because when
Mm,
I try, and this was my experience too, when I tried to be the therapized, emotionally mature one, I was yelled at, name called, ostracized, smear campaigned, called
mm,
immature, and told that I was in middle school for blocking some of his family on social media because I would find message threads of them talking shit about me instead of coming to me. And then when I would try to go to them, they would lie and be like, I never said that. And then I would send them the screenshot and they're like, I didn't mean it. And I'm like, so which is it? You didn't say it or you didn't mean it that way? Or would you have meant it if you knew I never
mm,
did it? Like, I don't play that shit. That's where Cop Talia comes out too, because I'm like, I will find it. Like, don't doubt the detective work. But there's a piece of if I'm the more mature one or able to tolerate the big feelings and I have no problem apologizing where it's due, I will go to that person. And I went to his mom. I was like, look, I don't know what your problem is with me, but as far as I can recall, our one-to-one interactions, just the two of us, not what you
mm,
told or whatever else, I can't honestly think of a time where it's been negative. I'm open for feedback if I'm wrong. Well, it wasn't that. It was when he said, I don't want to go with that. If you and I have our own nucleus relationship, this has never had a problem. You are the emotionally immature one for letting others
mm,
influence that. And that's a key piece in emotionally mature family dynamics. I can have my good and bad parts, and I can try and foster an individual relationship separate from the double-edged sword. Well, that's your mom or your dad, you deal with them. Yes, everybody is the liaison for their own family. However, if I'm going to be in the system long term, I also need and want maybe to have my own,
Mm,
to maybe, I don't know, go to lunch, go to the driving range. It doesn't mean we'll talk about the same things. They'll never be your family the way that you grew up with them, you
true.
know? But if I want to foster that relationship and I try and I met with emotional immaturity, you don't actually have to have a relationship with your extended family or your in your family if they can't match your emotional
Mm,
maturity, or if they don't want to respect it, or if you have very dissimilar values, if you feel disrespected. You don't have to force yourself or feel like you're going,
mm,
because that's what this person was writing. And like, I just can't stand being near it because he turns into, or whatever she wrote, like
yeah.
they go at it with each other and I just don't know who to deal with. Walk away. That's on him. That doesn't have to be your relationship with him or with her. That's their relationship with each other. Honoring, let it's, I don't love Mel Robbins' let them theory for other reasons, but in that sense, it's like allow that to be separate from yourself.
Hmm.
That's how I would say it.
You know, something that has really worked, like whether it's professionally or just personally, is also having check-ins of like who are you having this conversation with? Maybe
Yes.
that's me as a parts therapist, as an IFS
No.
therapist, but like I at times like I'll never forget when my wife started using this language in our conversations, and it pissed me off. Why did it piss me off? Because it grounded me. When she would ask, "Who are you arguing with?"
Mm,
And she would help me out even more. She would say, "Are you talking to your wife?" And I was like, "Oh fuck." like
yeah.
okay, all right. But it's been a very meaningful like road bump, like a speed bump for us
Yeah.
of like, oh wait a second, before we launch into a conversation we don't want to have, who are you actually having this conversation with?
Where does this belong?
And so like and that's where where I would want to encourage the listener is I think there's a lot of intervention here for you to be able to say when you can feel your husband dysregulating, when you can feel him going in, sort of falling into that like either victimhood spot or the self-deprecation or whatever it is, being able to actually say, what did you hear me say?
Hmm.
Now sometimes people will take that as being condescending. You just have to be careful with how you use the tone, but
True.
you're trying to clarify. No, what did I said that like you didn't take out the trash. I didn't say that you're a piece of shit human being, right?
Well, I'm
Like
curious
this
what that.
one. So like that is a great like also if we're in committed relationships with others, I think that we owe it to people to be like, all I'm calling out is that your response to what I'm saying
Doesn't match.
doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
Like, no, like, yeah, you forgot to pick up the dry cleaning, but I wasn't saying that you weren't working hard. You failed to take out the trash, but I'm not saying that you're not a present husband.
Why did you go there though? Is my, not like a cute, like, why did you not do that thing? But, and that's where it's hard to be a therapist. It was hard for me being a therapist and trying to not apply that way of speaking or being into
Hmm.
a partnership. And obviously depends on who you're with and if they have a
True.
personality disorder or not. But the typical standard non clinical reason, but emotionally immature person will be able to change out of this behavioral pattern
Mm,
once they have it genuinely supported by their partner, especially, or by friends or family, of like, this person needs to change. They need to get their feelings under control. They need to be able to regulate their emotions more. It leads to a better life. Any emotion, guilt, shame,
mm,
sadness, anger, all of those in inappropriate placements or in too much intensity that's not effective, there is a need for those to be regulated for you to stay as part of a functional family
hmm,
system. And if one partner's in therapy doing the work and the other one isn't, or they're misusing
hmm,
therapy to get away with something, which again, that's more like personality disorder, behavioral pattern. But you have to be willing to be called out lovingly and know that ideally your partner's intent is not to make you feel, and I'm putting that in quotes
mm,
for audio only listeners, can't make someone feel something. Does that
correct.
mean on average, like if you slap me across the face or I slapped you, the standard person would be like, yeah, that would hurt. That's
Hmm.
that's not what we're talking about of like make someone this. Yeah, there's more often than not this is going to be the response. But if you're personalizing the a reason why somebody did that, often check yourself, because that's why you would do it if you did it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean it's why the other person, that wasn't their intent just because they did it. So if somebody telling you that their boundary is whatever it is makes you angry, that's a you thing that you need to look inward and go, why am I so angry by this? Why would their first
Mm,
response when I block them be, oh, this is like so middle school of you? And I'm like, well, funny you should mention it, because I actually did get bullied in middle school and I was 13. And if I feel 13 again being in my 30s, we have another problem. So whether you think it's middle school or not, I have no problem standing by my behavior. I don't want to be misinterpreted. And I'm sick of walking in a room knowing now, feeling like before,
mm-hmm.
knowing now that all of you were just talking shit about me and then lying to my face. How would you feel? No answer. So being
Mm-hmm.
able to be firm in, here's what I want, here's what I need, here are my boundaries, and here's how I'm going to handle conflict. That doesn't mean the person you're dealing with is going to be mature. My ex's family was incredibly passive aggressive, incredibly so. And seeing the parents interact, or even how they were with me sometimes, I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to change. And then there's times where I've had friends whose parents are incredibly emotionally mature, and I'm like, oh, this is where they learned it from. This is where, in a positive,
Mm,
they are so attuned in this, or we're all
yeah.
therapists. Our parents weren't, and we went to grad school and did all these trainings, and now we are. So we're like the outliers. It's either like you're emotionally mature family, and so you become emotionally
Yeah.
immature, an emotionally mature family, therefore you are emotionally mature, or you grew up without it, had to teach yourself
Mm,
how to have it. Now you have it and can give it to others, but that doesn't mean there still won't be that imago, whatever connection, because if you grew up with parents who are emotionally immature and you had to grow and change and learn how to do it yourself, your subconscious attraction, like blueprint or template, is people who are also emotionally immature and hoping that one day they'll change, or maybe you can fix them.
mm,
That's why learned emotional mature people can often partner with emotionally immature people, because it recreates that whole savior complex, family system dynamic,
mm-hmm.
etc. So if you find yourself looking at and being like, oh shit, that's my partner, lovingly, like you said, let them know, I want this to change.
And want this to change, but more importantly, also reaffirming that I'm not going to be a willful participant in it, right? Like, if you don't
Mhm.
want to find yourself in a paintball gun fight, don't pick up the paintball gun, right? Like
Yeah,
that's sort of the situation that happens
yeah,
as we come into a chaotic environment. Someone hands us the emotional paintball gun and is like, "Oh, play," and
yeah,
we make the mistake of grabbing onto it. And I
yeah.
think that's where you can sort of sit back and say, I can also speak from some honesty of like, this isn't working for us.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't work how I have a relationship with your mother or how I do this now. Like,
Yeah,
and I think this also brings up, I'm hearing this a lot from spouses right now in this season of like, you can't outsource actively managing your family to your spouse. Doesn't work. Like,
no,
your significant other is not the one that's in charge of having difficult conversations with your mother. Like, you should be having these conversations with your mother, your father, just as much as your significant other should be having those conversations with their family of
that
origin.
makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, guess what? That's because you're a toddler and we're trying to raise that child up, right? How do we raise that child up? Through experiences. So
Yeah,
there's going to be change. And so there's like, I know I've had plenty of husbands that have been pissed off with me for this advice, but it just works. Of like, I will tell my female clients, like, you get to tell your spouse how you wish to participate in this holiday season. So if you say like, "Hey, this is what I think would be best for us and our family, and this is what I want to do," and they fail to articulate that to their family, or their family at the last minute decides to make a bunch of changes in the schedule or whatever, that could impact how you participate, right? It's not punishment. It's, I literally have lined it up at, this is the best way for me to interact with you guys, and you didn't make it happen. We had this situation over Thanksgiving where we knew what was going to be best for us if we were going to make a long drive to go see family is the meal needs to be at noon, right? The meal is normally at 2 o'clock. Guess what? When I called, because it was my family of origin, and I said, "Hey, this would really be a benefit to us and we'd be able to stay and we'd be able to be present." Guess what? Boom, they changed. But if you're going to make like that request, "Hey, can we do this?" And you show up, the bird's not done, the the green beans aren't done, guess what? You had already committed that you were going to be there for so long, and then you were going to bail,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But these need to be like, it's not just the holidays. There's family birthdays, there's get-togethers, there's all sorts of things. And this is where your ownership as a significant other is being able to communicate to your other half how you're willing to participate.
Yeah.
Don't leave it up to be a coin flip. Don't leave it up to just luck. Say, hey, this is how I could do that thing.
Mhm.
Because that's when both of you can meet each other in the middle and make a
Mhm.
decision that's going to be best for your family.
Yes. It's going to take time for your partner to change if they're willing and wanting to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to you to decide how much patience, bandwidth, tolerance, whatever the word you want to use.
Mm,
How long am I willing to wait? Especially if you've been in
correct.
the pattern for so long, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 years. It's not going to happen overnight,
Mm-hmm.
especially. So the longer it's been like this, the longer it's going to take to change. You get to decide if that's the worth it equation. Is that
Mm,
worth it? If they are actively showing up, doing the work, setting the boundaries with their family, you can see the improvements, things can change. Please go down that path. But also know you have to have internal boundaries around how much you will and won't tolerate. And sometimes it's just too slow of
mm,
growth, and there needs to be, like I've joked before, it was like you can't you can't have alcoholism and cheating and family dysfunction. You get to pick one. You cannot have all three because that's way too much and that's not
correct.
tolerable. So you have to like fill out your bingo card and what you will and won't tolerate. So maybe every year the holidays are now much better, but you only have to deal with shit on whatever St. Patrick's Day. But more often than not, it's more cohesive when you go over to your in-laws. That's a win, right? Chalk that up as a win.
Absolutely.
If you're noticing no progress for 3, 6 months of a year, that might be time to reconsider. Hey, I think we're on different goal paths for this
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And then giving ultimatums at the end of that. We start with boundaries and couples therapy and willingness and right, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're two people building, a system we came from that's different into one. That takes time. But you can also see unwillingness over a certain period of time that they're
Oh,
like, no, I'm
absolutely.
just going to go find somebody who doesn't mind my family's like this. Whatever. Like, if you have a problem with it, it's
Mm-hmm.
your problem versus, oh, if you have a problem with it, that's an us problem. Let's work on it. Most people want the second kind of partner that I listed. Most people leave the first kind of partner that I
Mm-hmm.
listed. Yeah. So that's what I would say for emotional maturity. Find a partner who is emotionally mature and work on being emotionally mature yourself. If you are emotionally immature, please
Mm-hmm.
go to therapy and do work on that. If you had emotionally immature parents, there is healing for you. There are tons of books and podcasts of how to heal from the effects of emotional immature parenting or childhood emotional neglect. And then if you are the dysfunctional family or what have we call black sheep, whatever family, like listening to this, yes,
Mm-hmm.
you are the problem in part, and things can change if everybody in the system can change if you choose to. You may have a healthier lineage overall, but the choice is up to the individual at the end of the day.
Mic drop. Wrap that one up into a bow.
Okay.
Talia's back.
She's back. She has eyeliner on, and she's back. It was very funny when Adam and I first logged on. He's like, you look. I forget what the word is. When I was, he's like, oh, did you get your hair done? And I'm like, no, I just actually put in a little effort and put on
My
makeup.
exact caveat is don't take this as
Yeah.
me thinking you always look like a train wreck, but I'm just wondering,
Yes.
you look really put
Yes.
together.
Yes. Yes.
And
Eyeliner. Honestly, that's the only trick. And getting my eyebrows done, as I said.
there you
So
go.
yeah, I feel put together. I do feel like I am back in many ways, and I'm very excited for this new year, 2026, for the show as well. So if you've made it
Absolutely.
this long as our listenership, not just in this episode, but all of our episodes for the last few years, I want to say a heartfelt thank you. We couldn't
Yes.
do all of this without you.
Thank you for inviting us into your lives. It's always refreshing to get those DMs, whether it's hearing that you listen to us as you're at the gym or you're driving to work. And um, we really appreciate when you guys reach out and you have questions because we do it for you.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, we like to talk, but we wouldn't do this for no reason. And so the knowledge of knowing that we're having some sort of benefit in people's lives helps us carry that steam into the new year.
Yes. So thank you very much, and we will see you next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Between Two Clinicians. We would so appreciate if this episode resonated with you for you to share it with somebody, and also find your favorite podcast platform and like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. We would love to attract more listeners just like you and have this message be spread to whoever needs it. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.